Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be exploring the Minimum Data Set version 3.0, or the MDS 3.0 as it is commonly called, the federal assessment used in long-term care. We're going to focus on section F, which captures residents' daily and activity preferences, which is vital for recreational therapists. This is primarily used in skilled nursing and assisted living facilities. So what is the MDS? So the MDS is completed on admission, it's completed on a quarterly basis, annually, and when a significant change in status occurs, and that'll typically be indicated to you by your administration. Typically, if there is an electronic medical record or charting system within your organization, it'll track all of these milestones and you can check up on it. It'll tell you when a patient is due to be reevaluated. Typically, a quarterly assessment is, unless there's anything crazy that's happened, is the same as your previous assessment. You can kind of just go through that quickly. Annually, and significant change is a little bit more involved and typically involves more of a full-on reeval of that particular patient. So this data informs the care plans and helps facilities meet the CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, regulations, which if you are working in a skilled nursing facility or assisted living, those regulations are obviously super important. It's also important to keep in mind that anything that you write or any information gathered from the section F needs to be also mirrored and documented into your care plan, into their goals and objectives for that particular patient. So the purpose and impact. So recreational therapists rely on the MDS to coordinate with the interdisciplinary team. As I'll talk about in a little bit, there's several sections of the MDS, and we only are filling out the section F, but there are large areas that are completed by other members of the care team. Accurate data is going to ensure that residents receive individualized services, including leisure and activity programming. So the clinical aspect, it identifies needs and supports for person-centered care. So that's really big. So identifying the needs of that particular individual that make it person-centered. Is it, one of the questions is, do you enjoy watching TV and movies? If they say yes, what do they like? Do they like old classics? Do they like action movies? And making sure that that is indicated in their care plan. Administrative determines resource utilization and makes a case for payments, and quality contributes to the public quality, and then that also the ratings of the individual facility. So there's different 5-star quality ratings and things like that. So the structure of the MDS, there are multiple sections. Like I said, I'm covering various areas, sections A through Z. There is a variety of different things such as identification and demographics, health conditions, cognitive patterns, which is often where the clinical social worker will input that many mental exam results, mood and behavior, functional status, and then the preferences, which is section F, which is the section that as rec therapists we're responsible for. So and that is a section that is key to our work as our recreation professionals. So the section F overview, the title of it is Preferences for Customary Routine and Activities. And the first section of it is a bunch of activities that are more so related to the day-to-day. It's things like do you prefer to take a shower or a bed bath? Do you prefer to get dressed alone, or do you need assistance? Those sort of things. And then it'll get more into the different activities that person likes. The goal is to capture the resident's voice on daily life and their leisure interests, and it is conducted as a resident interview whenever possible. So as you are doing it, there are times if somebody has a really high level of dementia and are kind of too far gone, there are instances where you're going to have to interview the family or whoever is their guardian, but in general, it is ideal and most beneficial to get the information from the resident themselves in the facility. So this plan is essential to just ensuring that the care plan is going to reflect the individual's choices and their priorities. So again, I touched a little bit on this in the prior slide, but the interview is conversational and it asks open-ended questions. It asks respect for cultural differences and uses supportive communication techniques. If a resident can't respond, the staff or family input is recorded, but again, that direct interview is always the first choice. So again, related to things like daily preferences, those bathing time, dressing routines, meal times, activity preferences. Do they enjoy, are religious services important for them? If they are, then that needs to be in their care plan, and you need to help to make sure that they get to any of those religious services that they want to attend while they're in the facility. Do they enjoy doing group activities? If so, what activities? Can you help them get to them? Reading, spending time outdoors, music, and social interaction. If they identify these things as very important, then that is definitely critical for it to be in their care plan and for those things to happen while they are there. And then important ratings. So the ratings are very important, somewhat important, or not important. So that is what they're going to say. You're going to ask them to indicate for every question that you ask them, either very important, somewhat important, or not important. I will say sometimes in the past, I know that I have done this where they can't remember all of those things. So I would often bring like a laminated large card with me, and I could have them point to it and say, how important is this to you? And then it would be highlighted in bold, and they could also point to it. And that way they didn't have to remember, because they get frustrated sometimes if they're like, what am I supposed to tell you? So just something to consider. So the role of the recreation therapist is to translate the section of findings into individualized activity plan or their care plan. This will often be part of the larger plan that every discipline and every person within the facility is going to have a little piece of it. So you might have just, 2 or 3 goals and objectives for your particular section, but really helping to make sure that that's individualized. Again, that works in your collaborating with nursing, social work, and dietary teams in order to do that as well. So some of the things listed in your plan may also fall on the responsibility of other members. So for example, nursing can help you get them to certain activities, or if they need to be up by a certain time to attend something, nursing, dietary teams can help if they need a specific help with eating or feeding. All of that is also going to help you to monitor and update the preferences as resident status or interests change. So they might change over time, or the resident might decline. So lots of things to bear in mind. So again, this documentation is going to link their preferences to their measurable goals. So going way back on the first weeks, we're talking about goals. An example, resident values outdoor gardening, schedule weekly horticulture sections. So this is going to demonstrate compliance with the CMS's person-centered care requirements. Challenges and best practices. So some challenges, as we've talked about, cognitive impairment can affect their ability to effectively answer the questions. There could also be communication barriers. So if the resident speaks a different language, I've had to use a language line before, which is when you, for a variety of different languages. So you can call a number and then you'll translate the question, and then the translator on the phone will then translate that question to the resident, and it definitely makes the process a lot longer, and also you're not really sure what is actually getting relayed to the resident based on the translation. So those cultural communication barriers based on different languages and cultural differences can pose a challenge. Using adaptive interviewing, so visual cues, kind of like we talked about before with the laminated sheet that they can point to things. You can also make the things yes or no questions or have yes or no boards. Reassessing regularly is important, and training staff in respectful and resident directed conversations is also important. So talking to them like adults, like they're people, not just, bedbound humans that aren't capable of doing anything. So, and something to consider that even residents with dementia can express preferences when we adapt our methods. So we're going to document how you attempted to capture their voice in that assessment as well. So just a quick case example that I have here. So resident Mrs. T. Ms. T indicates it is very important to attend religious services and listen to jazz. So her care plan would include something like weekly transportation to chapel and personalized music playlists during leisure time that you could help set up with her. And again, that's something that nursing staff or other staff can help you with. So some key takeaways: the MDS 3.0 is a foundation of assessment in long-term care. You'll hear about it a lot. Section F empowers residents and informs therapeutic recreation. And accurate person-centered documentation makes better outcomes and regulatory compliance. So this is something that as future CTRSs or other therapists, you will build on your skills in interviewing and planning around Section F in order to fulfill all the requirements. So that was a pretty quick lecture. Thank you all for sticking around. This is probably one of the assessments that I have the most experience with. So if anyone has any further questions or comments, feel free to reach out, and I will see you all soon. Have a great day.